We are conscious. We know what it is like to be ourselves, and this gives us an awareness of the scale of pain in life. The majority of all life does not experience pain. Viruses, single-celled life such as bacteria, and there's the plethora of creatures with some way of sensing heat and cold, light and dark, touch and pressure, but no means of perceiving this as pain or pleasure. This group includes plant life and many small creatures, but then there is a range of creatures that have some kind of awareness of pain, some sentience, creatures capable of suffering. Why would a good creator make a world in which there is pain? This, it has been said, is the only question worth asking. It is not only an intellectual question, but a question of lived experiences and pastoral concern. I will answer it in different ways at different points, so this is just the first part of an answer. Pain is first of all the healthy response to something going wrong. If you reach out to hold something scalding hot, pain is the signal that the object you've touched will damage you. Pain is a warning which can prevent or lessen damage to your body. Look at the consequences of leprosy, because of which the afflicted person cannot feel physical pain from pressure or temperature, and you will see the terrible damage that is done by an inability to feel pain. But sometimes pain comes from a cause from which there is no escape. An example of this, and perhaps in countries with a high life expectancy the most feared, is cancer. Cancer is not really one thing, it comes in many kinds. Some are preventable, with causes in human action such as those linked to asbestos. For our current point, let's keep this to cancer with no known human behavioural cause. As a priest, I have walked through the experience of cancer alongside others, and as a friend, I have sat by the bedside of people I loved dearly when every breath was a struggle. So please know this is not an abstract concept for me. Cancer, in broad terms, is the failure of a cell, a part of your own body, to work properly. It might be that the mechanism to switch off cell division stops working, and so it keeps reproducing and forms a tumour. Or it might be that a cell from the immune system starts to attack your body instead of viruses. Here, leukemia has similarity to rheumatoid arthritis. In cancer, we see that something necessary for growth or health, the ability of a cell to reproduce, or the ability of the body to recognise hostile organisms at a cellular level, has gone wrong. It is harming the whole organism, the body. This pattern is repeated throughout the natural world. We're used to seeing viruses as simply bad, but most viruses are not harmful to humans, and without them, bacteria would overrun the planet. So viruses largely benefit our habitat. Our own bodies would not work without bacteria. Many dietary issues in the modern gut might be the result of the loss of good bacteria after a course of antibiotics, or because of a diet of processed food that does not feed the bacteria in our guts adequately. My own least favourite invertebrate, the common wasp, keeps down the population of slugs as a predator. Moulds, slugs, snails and beetles and bacteria all break down and dispose of organic waste and recycle nutrients into the soil. We have an abstract concept of good and evil, but the writers of the Old Testament of the Bible, who thought, talked and wrote in Hebrew, the words that we translate as good and evil had a more consequential meaning. Good is to function. So when we are told that God said, "It is good," over creation in Genesis 1, God was celebrating what was made. But God is not saying that creation is perfect, what we might mean by good in the abstract. God is saying that it works. In creation, every natural law and every type of creature has a place. In the right place, it helps creation and life to flourish, for things to work. Pain is the warning signal to those creatures that are conscious or sentient in the world that something is no longer working. Something has gone wrong. It is harming the body or the ecosystem. So why would the Creator, if they are good, allow things to go wrong? To answer this, we must first define freedom. Mistakenly, I think, freedom is vaguely considered today to be the ability to do anything, but you cannot make a four-sided triangle or a three-sided square. Some things are logically impossible. Other actions or changes which are theoretically possible are beyond the capacity, imagination or desire. That is beyond who or what you or I are. I cannot claim to know how you feel, though I can empathise. I certainly can't know what it is like to be a butterfly or a tree, if being a tree is like anything. So, freedom is not the ability to do or even feel anything we want. Freedom with consciousness is partly the possibility of directing or choosing how you are changed within the limits of your being. That is, change or growth without coercion or tyranny, suppression. But freedom is also connected to the ability to leave an impression or to have influence over change in your community or environment. When either of these things are conscious acts, we call this free will. But all things have some ability, some sort of freedom, if freedom is this ability of the individual creature to be changed and to grow in the natural influence of their community and nature, whilst also affecting change outside themselves, without limiting the freedom of other creatures. To this end, humans and maybe other sentient species are helped by our ability to imagine the feelings of others, to have empathy that frees us from a mono or singular perspective, that in the egotistical individual results in curtailing the freedom of others. Freedom in this world is existing in the symmetry of natural law and chaos, in the space between being and becoming. Without this space, we could not change or be changed. We would be powerless to create or to destroy. The book of Job in the Bible is about when a good person suffers unfairly. Job's friends say that there is a straightforward moral order to the universe. If Job suffers, he must have done something wrong. Job rightly, the book concludes, insists that his suffering is not the result of his character. Job goes further and demands that God shows up to explain why he is suffering. God does turn up, but his answer might not seem all that satisfactory to you. God's answer is to ask Job if he was there when the limits of the sky and the land, winds and snows were set, or measures of the waters taken. Limits is an interesting word because it suggests a range of possibilities. Within the limits of a house or a garden, you move around freely. God is telling Job that the foundational natural laws work, but that within their bounds variety is possible and change is necessary. Remember the symmetry of order and chaos and the necessity of change for life? Every natural law and creature within our universe interacts with other laws and creatures. This interaction puts everything into a network of relationships of influence. This is what St. Thomas calls the ability of all creatures to be image makers. This goes all the way from quantum entanglement of atoms to the rocks effect on the riverbed and the water's flow, to the tree dropping its seed, to humans sharing not only genetic traits but thoughts and words. This is what I suggested freedom is, our ability to be changed and to change within our nature. Though humans bring conscious awareness to this picture, freedom is necessary for all creation, for life particularly, and not least for love, which the Bible says is the defining character of good relationships between people and God. For love, there must be freedom, but freedom has consequences. Conversely, you might say that a universe of consequences is necessary for freedom. It creates the possibility of one creature exerting so much influence on another that the freedom of that second creature to influence and to follow its own nature or to even exist is curtailed. God's words to Job to me suggest that this is the best of all possible worlds. a world in which there is even the possibility of relational change within the limits of each creature's nature. Everything is changed by the action on it of other things, but each thing is also making its impression within its habitat, and the result is a universe where simple natural laws create immense complexity. Chaos theory is the idea that things interact in such a complex system that you can't predict the outcomes. Hence the famous idea that a butterfly flapping its wings on one side of the ocean could start a hurricane on the other. The butterfly effect. The idea is not, of course, that the butterfly causes the hurricane, but that as one very small effect alongside hundreds or millions more, it might be the difference between a strong wind and a storm. It could be the feather that tips the scales. I think this is a fruitful way to begin to understand suffering. God is the first cause, both the one who sets the limits and breathes in the wind of change, and it is between these that we find freedom. We are made to change and to be changed as part of a web of interactions so complex that we cannot always know what causes our pain. It may be an innocent flap of the butterfly's wings. We always want to find the thing that is to blame, to be given a direct answer to our questions. But between chaos theory and God's answers to Job, perhaps a part of the answer is that sometimes there is no answer. No one is to blame. It is the consequence of necessary freedom, the changes that we make and are made in us within the limits of our natures, because freedom is necessary for the best possible world.